Before we begin today, I need to ask David Shepherd, Head of Legal Services, to run through some housekeeping issues.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Welcome, members of the City Council, and welcome, members of the audience. In relation to fire and emergency procedures, they ought to be up on the screen very shortly. If they're not, and in the meantime, if the bell goes, it's not a practice, it's for real. So, members of the public gallery, if you go up the stairs and to your left as I'm looking at, to your right as you are, down the stairs, you'll be escorted down the stairs and assemble at the front. Can I also ask that all mobile phones are switched to silent or vibrate if you absolutely need it on, please. No other fire and emergency or housekeeping issues as far as I'm aware, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1. Are there any apologies? Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Any other apologies?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Councillor David James and Councillor Ted Fry. Councillor Wiggins also, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy. Can I welcome colleagues from South Ham District Council and West Devon Borough Council in the public gallery this morning? Welcome. Item 2, declarations of interest. The Head of Legal Services, Mr Shepherd, will invite councillors to make any declarations of interest. A flow chart providing guidance is set out in your papers to assist you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to, if I may, repeat the advice I provided to the Cabinet who sat earlier this morning in relation to declarations of interest in relation to land that you may or may not own. In relation to land that you own in Plymouth, if you own land in Plymouth and you feel that the matters that you're discussing today, upon which you're taking a decision under the joint local plan, or indeed the Plymouth refresh, has a positive or a negative effect on that land, then you would have a disclosable pecuniary interest. With the DPI, as you'll know, you would need to declare and withdraw at the outset of the meeting. That decision is entirely a matter for you. In relation to if you own land outside of Plymouth, the legislation doesn't make that DPI. However, if you do own land outside of Plymouth, in West Devon or in South Hams in this regard, and you feel that the interest that you have in that land financially could be of benefit to a decision you make today, or there could be a burden to that financial interest you have in that land, then in that respect you have to ask yourself, can I make a decision? Do I come here with clean mind? Do I come here with a mind that is open to persuasion, or am I here with a closed mind? If you have a view that no, I can't possibly make a decision in relation to that because I'm influenced by that, then it could be argued you are biased in relation to the decision you're making. My advice to you in those circumstances is don't be here, go outside and don't make the decision, because that would be an unlawful decision. So I'm happy to take questions if you have in relation to that. The declarations are entirely a matter for you to make, but I hope you found that advice useful. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Item 3, pages 3 to 8 and pages 1 to 314 of the supplement pack. The Cabinet minute is being distributed. Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan. Councillor Nicholson, would you like to present the recommendations?
Good morning, Lord Mayor, members of the Council. It is with great pleasure and pride that I move the recommendations of Cabinet this morning in relation to the Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan. The phrase, "this is an historic moment," is probably overused these days. But in the case of the Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan, I believe it is justified. This is because this is the first time ever we have produced a strategic plan for Plymouth, West Devon and South Hams in partnership. Not even the famous 1943 Abercrombie plan to rebuild Plymouth after the Second World War did that. I am really excited to present the first ever joint local plan Plymouth has prepared in direct collaboration with South Hams and West Devon, to look at the planning challenges facing our joint areas through to 2034. It is the culmination of an enormous amount of work undertaken over the last few years. It is also a plan that has listened to the views of the people that we serve. We are maintaining the fundamentals of the vision for Plymouth, which was reflected in the previous core strategy and various area action plans. We are extending this to the wider area so that we can create a successful sub-region. The joint local plan sets in place policies to help meet the overall development needs of the area in a sustainable way, including for 26,700 new homes, of which at least 6,600 should be affordable homes, and 312,700 square metres of new employment floor space. It then identifies the potential supply of sites to meet this need, providing sufficient headroom to allow for changes of circumstance and to deliver wider objectives. The plan distributes development across two policy areas: the Plymouth policy area, which includes Plymouth and the urban fringe, and the Thriving Towns and Villages policy area. This strategy is to maximise growth at Plymouth, with over 70% of the housing and employment growth concentrated within the Plymouth policy area. Within Plymouth, we are maintaining the focus of where that growth should primarily be accommodated in three major growth areas: the city centre and waterfront, Derriford and the northern corridor, and the eastern corridor of the city. In the city centre and waterfront growth area, there are allocations for over 3,800 homes and 82,000 square metres of employment. In the Derriford and northern corridor growth area, there are allocations of over 4,100 homes and around 100,000 square metres of employment. And in the eastern corridor growth area, there are allocations of over 7,000 homes and 326,000 square metres of employment. Within Plymouth, 71 sites will be allocated to meet the priority need for housing in the area, and a further 33 sites for employment uses. My Lord Mayor, 86% of new homes within Plymouth will be on brownfield sites. It is also important to highlight that we have looked at hundreds of sites across the city, many of which have been put forward by developers, and since the summer consultation, we have rejected an additional 122 sites. The plan sets out strategic policies for delivering sustainable development, planning for retail both in the city centre as well as local and town centres, working with our neighbours to drive growth, strategic connectivity, infrastructure and natural environment. And on the natural environment, I am pleased with the innovative approach the plan takes to protecting important landscapes and local green spaces. We are designating 6 strategic green spaces covering 1,900 hectares of land. This includes Central Park, as well as land at Saltram, Sherford, Derriford, the Plym Valley and Woolwell. The plan also protects 700 hectares of land on the fringes of the city, which we have resisted from proposed developments. There are also a further 169 local green spaces that have been designated following suggestions made by the local communities in earlier consultations. All of this is backed up by a recent capital programme announcement where we are allocating over £14 million towards enhancing the city's natural assets. The plan consolidates and strengthens Plymouth's role as a major regional city in the southwest, unlocking Plymouth's regional potential by utilising its regional significant assets such as the university and colleges, the naval base, its key economic sectors of marine, advanced manufacturing, medical, health and knowledge-based industries. The plan also sets out our development policies on healthy communities, housing, the economy, place shaping and heritage, the natural environment, transport and infrastructure, climate change, flooding, coastal management, and how we are going to monitor and deliver the plan together. Lastly, it is important to recognise that the policies and proposals contained in this plan have been evidence-based, draw upon the latest data and analysis, whilst building upon the foundations of plans and studies dating back as far as 2004. This is an important point which might easily be overlooked. The plan, Lord Mayor, before us today is the continuation of an agenda for growth that we have pursued cross-party for well over a decade. My Lord Mayor, in conclusion, it is perhaps worth reminding members why it is important to have a local plan. By putting in place a local plan, we, as local councillors, are making the decisions about the city's future, having listened extensively over the last couple of years to local people. We can use this plan to drive forward the city and the thriving towns and villages that surround us. We are also doing what we can to use the plan to guide our investment decisions and also to influence the investment decisions of others to the benefit of our area. We can use the plan to attract funding from a variety of sources to make the plan a reality. And of course, we can use the plan through the planning committee to reject unsustainable development and development that does not contribute to the vision it sets out and the policies it puts in place. My Lord Mayor, in conclusion, this is a bold and imaginative plan which will allow Plymouth, West Devon and South Hams to go from strength to strength. It protects all that is good within our communities, but provides for the future needs of our communities that we're here all to serve. And I therefore, through you, Lord Mayor, commend it to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Boyer, I understand you're going to second the recommendations. Do you wish to speak now?
Yes. Yes, please, if I may, Lord Mayor. I'd like to second the recommendations from Cabinet in relation to the joint local plan. Lord Mayor, if I can, I'd like to very briefly highlight 4 key issues in the plan: Plymouth's strategic role, the city centre, Plymouth's strategic connectivity, and lastly, our commitment to work collaboratively as an administration to deliver what we have said we would deliver in this plan. Perhaps I can take each in turn. Plymouth's strategic role as an economic driver of the South West. Strategic Objective 2 of the Joint Local Plan seeks to consolidate and strengthen Plymouth's role as the major regional city in the South West through strengthening the role of Plymouth City Centre, the waterfront and Derriford as regional hubs and economic drivers and unlocking their regional growth potential. It includes driving forward delivery of the South West Peninsula City Deal, safeguarding the strategic defence role that Plymouth plays for the UK, and protecting and enhancing the quality and resilience of Plymouth's transport and digital connectivity to the rest of the country and to global markets. In short, this means Plymouth and the surrounding areas of West Devon and South Hams stepping up to the plate and delivering regional significant growth through this plan. If I can turn to the city centre, on the city centre, we remain committed to delivering a vibrant, mixed-use regional shopping centre which will be transformed through attracting nationally significant investors, such as British Land, and investing substantially in the public realm. Strategic Objective 3 and Policy PLY 6 set out how the city centre will be renewed and enhanced through a combination of major new developments, proactive management of change, and support for community and trader-led initiatives, including support for a vibrant independent quarter in the West End. Policy PLY 7 to 16, policies PLY 7 to 16, set out what we plan in relation to strategically important city centre sites such as Colin Campbell Court, Old Town Street, the Civic Centre and the railway station. Plymouth's strategic connectivity. On roads, we are investing £208 million into improving the strategic road infrastructure in the city through major projects such as the Woolwell to the George dualling, the Ford Valley Link Road, and Key Junction and other improvements on the eastern and northern corridors. On rail, the policy SPT8 of the plan draws on the Peninsula Rail Task Force 20-year plan by supporting investment that enhances the resilience of the rail network to extreme weather events and delivers improvements to capacity, frequency and journey times to London. The plan also supports reopening the rail links to Tavistock and various other rail improvements across the joint plan area. Finally, on air, Policy STP8 and PLY 42 deliver our manifesto commitment to protect the airport by safeguarding the opportunity for the potential future reuse of Plymouth Airport as a general aviation airport, whilst at the same time strengthening transport links to Exeter and Bristol airports. Taking into account the evidence base for aviation published alongside the joint local plan, we are committed to do this until the next 5-year review of the plan. This will provide sufficient time for a private sector-led business plan to be finalised and put into action to deliver aviation uses at this site. This is considered a reasonable approach to such a significant strategic asset for the city and the region. Contrary to reports, this is not a rowing back of our commitment to protect the site. It represents the best way we can convince a government inspector to support our approach. We will resist robustly the attempts of Sutton Harbour Company to bring the site forward for housing because, as you have heard, we simply don't need the land to meet the housing needs of the joint local plan housing market area. Lastly, delivery. Hopefully, by agreeing this joint local plan today, we do need now to be single-minded and committed to driving forward what we've said we will do. Across all departments of this council and with key strategic partners, we need to be proactively driving forward our proposals for housing, jobs and infrastructure. The joint local plan gives the strategic lead that enables us to work with partners to align all the city's capital programmes behind this combined ambition and vision. For the first time, we have prepared this strategic plan in collaboration with our neighbours West Devon Borough Council and South Hams District Council. I'd like to thank Councillors Parker and Baldwin from West Devon and Councillors Hicks and Pearce from South Hams for their support and hard work through the joint local plan member steering group. Going forward, this strategic relationship provides us with a strong foundation for delivery. If I might just one more sentence, Lord Mayor, thank you. I'd also like to thank Councillors Evans, Coker and Stevens for their contribution behind the scenes in drawing this up, not just from the Plymouth perspective, but from the overall strategic perspective. So in conclusion, Lord Mayor, this is a bold, innovative and imaginary plan that sets out the roadmap for Plymouth and South West Devon until 2034, and I commend it to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Evans.
Thank you. How long have I got? 5 minutes. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Can I completely associate myself with Councillor Boyer's thanks to our partners in the South Hams and West Devon for what I think we'd all agree is a pretty big day at the office for all of us. Hopefully over the next few days, West Devon and South Hams will also have a meeting like this where everybody in the room's got a smile on their face and we're all moving together as one, because this is an historic opportunity for us to show that when push comes to shove and when it needs be, local politicians are more than capable of coming together and agreeing what is to be done for the good of our area, and let nobody say that we're incapable of doing that. This is big evidence. I'd also, obviously on a personal note, like to lay down my thanks to the officers of the council, of this council, who have worked so hard on to get us to the point we are at today. I think it's fair to say that over the last, is it 4 years? It feels like 10. Over this period, extended period of cross-party working, I think it's fair to say that if there are any stones remaining unturned, they're tiny pebbles. They may even be gravel. But what they're certainly not is obstacles to our progress as a city, both for ourselves and the job we do in the region, but also the job that this city can do for the country. That might sound a little bit grand. It's not meant to be. What it's about really is this is an assertive document. It asserts, for the avoidance of any doubt, that we do a job for the country here. And if we get the support from government to do so, we will deliver. We've done a pretty good job at delivering without that support, or at least without the adequate support that we've demanded. But this is a route map to success. This is a route map to jobs. This is a route map to housing. This is a route map to Plymouth once again taking its place as a leading city in the UK as we go through the next century. On a personal note again, I'd obviously like to, without being, this might sound a bit boastful, but my 21 days as the chair of the Joint Local Plan Working Group hasn't been in vain. I would like to thank my former colleagues, soon to be colleagues again, I'm sure, in West Devon and South Hams for their support. Obviously, we went on the B of the bang, did we not, on that particular occasion? But I need, with the minute or two that's left, probably a minute, to say this. I completely and 100% agree with Councillor Bowyer on the protection of the airport, and let us, for the avoidance of any doubt, there is not a cigarette paper between us on our support for the airport and the wording in this plan, because it's absolutely essential that Sutton Harbour and anybody else who might fancy a little bit of asset stripping of that site know this, that the council is serious about that being vital infrastructure. Similarly, on fishing, it's really important that Sutton Harbour realise that that fish quay needs protecting. If you listened on the news to what's happening in Dorset at the moment, what's happening in other parts of this region to the fishing industry, protection of that fish quay is vital. But where this plan is really clever and really needs your full support is the water is important too. Making a specific statement about the water is a clever move, an innovative move, and I congratulate the officers for coming up with that, because this fishing industry in Plymouth is a national piece of our national industry, fishing. It is a vital cog in us feeding people and also giving people jobs. Not just here, although there are 1,000 jobs here directly dependent on it, and even more indirectly dependent on it. In Cornwall, I believe they're directly dependent, but it's not directly dependent. But the thing is that it's really big and important stuff. And it's really a big day that this council has recognised, probably for the first time, the vitality and importance of this industry to us. A traditional industry, like many traditional things in Plymouth, sometimes get overlooked in the search for the new. But it's really good that this piece of old Plymouth will survive and go on to greater things as a result of this piece of work. So I'm, Lord Mayor, with your permission, inviting the council to support this document today wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Sparling.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and I rise to support everything that I've heard so far this morning. But moving, if I may, from the macro to the micro level, I'd like to state for the record how pleased I am that the community of Stoke has been listened to in respect of Paradise Field, protected under this process. The priority for me was always to encourage as many residents as possible to be heard, and in the event, hundreds of people did actually contribute and make a submission. This is more than for any other site, and so I want to take this opportunity through you, Lord Mayor, to thank the residents of the area that I represent for their engagement. This really highlights the amazing community spirit locally.
Thank you, Councillor Sparling. Councillor Martin Leaves.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a passionate campaigner for Central Park, I very much welcome what's proposed in the Plymouth Plan for Central Park. In particular, deleting the proposed housing development at the top of Wake Street, returning Cottage Field back to playing field, and seeking to return the long-awaited cricket pitch at Pebble Park, which has been fenced off beyond 2005, denying younger generation access to what was once a decent cricket pitch. Designating Central Park as a green open space is really good news for Plymouth. For most of my time as elected member of this council, I have spent many time standing up for Central Park, working with the Friends of Central Park, Plymouth Tree Partnership, the allotment holders and the park users and residents of Peveril Ward in calling for a higher quality park with a cafe, a decent toilet facilities, which the last Labour Council took away. Protecting and enhancing the park and wildlife is fundamental to the future of the city. The 122-acre Central Park has huge potential for our city, not least for the citizens, young people, the disadvantaged, but also as a tourist destination. It has much potential to offer locally, but also the TV and film industry, promoting Plymouth and putting it back on the map. No matter what the weather brings, people still visit Central Park. Every acre of Central Park is precious to me. So I look forward to working with Councillor Nicholson and his team in delivering these policies and returning the cricket pitch, and I hope we can start by pressing Plymouth Argyle in sorting the future of Higher Home Park to include the new stand. Lord Mayor, I hope a clear message will be sent from this chamber today to all those developers with ill intention for our green open space on Central Park to keep off the grass. The green lawn is not for sale.
Thank you, Councillor Leaves. Councillor Linda Boyer.
Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor. I rise to support the joint local plan in delivering accessible homes to accommodate the needs of our ageing population and households with restricted mobility, specialist housing and projects for people with a range of disabilities. The government's recent published housing white paper highlights the need to properly plan for the needs of an ageing population. In addition to ensuring proper accessible standards of new homes, the plan also makes provision for new extra care facilities in policy PLY 29 in Mill Bay and policy PLY 38 in the Derriford District Centre. I warmly welcome this and the need for other forms of supported housing. We need to continue the cross-departmental working on providing homes that meet the need of older and vulnerable people to extending to working with our partners inside and outside of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyer. Councillor Ricketts.
Good morning, all. I welcome this with open arms through the leadership and the cross-party working and the efforts of the departments. There's some fantastic stuff in there, particularly with delivering high-quality housing. It talks about good living standards. It talks about housing that's appropriate to the area, keeping housing in keeping. It talks about affordable housing. And it talks about lots of things that we come to planning committee with. So it's a real honest assessment of what's right for a community. So it talks about amenity space. It talks about doing the right thing. It talks about inappropriate and appropriate conversions that have driven us mad for years on the committee. There's fantastic paragraphs within the document about HMOs, which again talks about those hot topics that often get discussed at committee. It talks about communal space, making sure we have good communal space for new housing, decent standards, and addressing issues that haven't been talked about properly before, which is issues that there's proper refuge collection, there's proper issues with sustainability in different areas, particularly in areas such that I represent. There's some fantastic stuff on the HMOs and the Article 4 tightening. And I really appreciate Councillor Nicholson's and the dialogue we've had on this issue. We recognise that Article 4 direction needs to be tightened for sustainable communities. It talks about family homes. It talks about real issues and the relationship with HMOs and the student dynamic that can appear in city centre locations. It gives that honest assessment of the harmful impacts when things are done wrong. And there's 7 elements that are pointed out there in the document that we can use when we go to planning in the future. There's the train station development, if we're talking about some local issues in the area I represent. Millions of pounds of investment there that's been unlocked through the plan, helping that move forward with partners. It talks, as my colleague Councillor Leave says, about protecting the park. It talks about the wraparound development that is no more, that we've been campaigning against and talking to local residents about for many years. And that those headline topics, which is about the houses of multiple occupation, the student accommodation issues within the city. So it ticks a hell of a lot of boxes, and everyone's work and efforts have been noted, and I'm sure the local community and the city will be thankful for what we've passed today. So thank you for everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Councillor Beer.
Good morning, Lord Mayor. Thank you. I fully support the joint local plan. It brings forward a new and expanded schools across the whole of the joint local plan area and meets the needs arising from the planned housing development. We are also making provision to extend our special needs education where appropriate. I strongly support the fact that we have put more thought into schools where they are needed. And can I also say, I particularly welcome policy Dev 10, which will prevent unnecessary garden grabbing, which has been a real issue in my area in Plympton and raised many times by me at the Planning Committee. So I fully support the joint local plan, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beer. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor. I'm grateful for Councillor Bowyer's kind words, and if I can reciprocate them for the short time that I've been on the working group, it's certainly an all-party matter. I think it would be wrong if we didn't thank Councillor Brian Vincent, who was cabinet member when all of this started. I think Brian deserves a bit of a shout out too. This really is the biggest listening exercise the city has conducted, and it is hard to condense such a meaningful and exciting document into just a few minutes' remarks, which is, I dare say, the problem that we're all facing. It's really, really nice to see the Plymouth History Centre enshrined in a planning policy document, PLY 18. Just having that there really does give us pride in our city going forward. Those of us who've been tearing our hair out over the past few years as to how we're going to solve the problem of Drake's Island will, I'm sure, be pleased to see the relevant policy mentioned in here, the egret amendment, some people were going to call it, but hopefully that will give us a way forward to return that absolutely key piece of Plymouth's heritage to some form of public use. The airport, it's impossible not to mention that, and hopefully the united front that we're all putting up today is important. I'd actually go a little bit further than Councillor Evans and say you probably couldn't get the boarding pass between us on the positions that we have. It's something that we do need to have a strong view on. A lot of people do complain about Plymouth's heritage disappearing, and I was really, really pleased to see in PL7, the policy looking at Colin Campbell Court, that the retention and refurbishment of Colin Campbell House, one of our truly historic Art Deco buildings in the city centre, will be protected if it's viable to do so. I think little things like that really do mean a lot to the people of the city. Those of us who have to defend the decisions that we make and the votes that we cast on the planning committee need a strong policy background behind us, and hopefully this will give us just that. Closer to home, Devonport, as Mark and I both know, will play its part in delivering housing. The sites in Richmond Walk and Mount Wise are key. Devonport doesn't shy away from playing its full role, but we'll be keeping a very close eye on those to make sure there's as little disruption to the existing population there. And the supermarket down at St Leven's Gate, long promised, we'll be making sure that that's held to, and make sure that the facilities are there for everybody to use and to enjoy. This really is a testament to everybody involved, Lord Mayor. The plan won the Excellence in Plan Making Award from the Royal Town Planning Institute. It's always good to have friends in in relatively high places to make sure that awards can be nominated and recognised. And the National Planning Awards themselves awarded it the Strategic Planning Award, and our staff were named the Joint Local Authority Team of the Year. So whereas we're making all the speeches and probably getting all the headlines, it's important that we recognise the people who've actually done the hard work, put the hours in, and made this whole thing possible. Lord Mayor, I'd like to thank everybody in my ward, in Devonport, in our part of Stoke, and Morristown in Keyham, who've contributed and had their voice heard. This is a historic day for us. When we look back 70 years from now, as we do, to the Abercrombie plan, hopefully people will say, back in 2017, they got it just about right. That's going to be the acid test for us, Lord Mayor, and I'm excited about the years going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and it is a great achievement that's taken quite a few years. And I wanted to highlight two things. First of all, certainly living and representing the north of the city, how good it is to see economic regeneration and development going on there in the Derriford North growth area, with extra employment sites coming at Belliver, Broadley Park, the Science Park, the Marine and Medical and Technology Parks. And having that sort of local employment is absolutely key to reinvigorating an area of the city that has perhaps been neglected as an economic driver for too long. But in the spirit of what Councillor Sparling said earlier, I think I do also want to pay tribute to the amount of community involvement there has been in this. And today I should be Johnny Be Good. I particularly want to mention people in Tamerton Foliot like Tina Forbes, Darren Gray, the Tamerton Foliot Village Conservation Society, who have engaged with this whole development plan from day one and constantly. And their pressure has paid off in having land rejected at Lakeview Close, Ken House, Allen Lane, the Southway Valley, West Tree Hills and the South Hams area. I think it's important that we as councillors in this chamber do pay tribute to the amount of free time and real effort that is put in by local communities to make sure that we get a plan that suits them. I said I'd be Johnny Be Good. I am, however, going to say that when we pay tribute to our local communities, it is very important that as a local councillor, or indeed as a local MP, you don't then appear at the end and claim credit yourself. And while I am being Johnny Be Good, I am very disappointed in my MP, Johnny Come Lately.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Darcy.
Well, on that very positive note of the previous speaker, I rise to very much echo the sentiment that's been expressed today, Lord Mayor, in that this is a great example of cross-party and collaborative working to the benefit of people of this city and beyond. And in particular, Lord Mayor, I'd like to talk about infrastructure and acknowledge the commitment we are making as a city in terms of the council to turn this exciting plan into delivery on the ground. The plan takes a much more detailed approach to infrastructure planning than in the past, and that is to be welcomed. For example, Strategic Objective 12 commits us to take a proactive and coordinated approach to delivering the infrastructure and investment needed to realise the plan's vision. We will also prepare a plan for infrastructure and investment, which will identify in detail how and when new infrastructure will be delivered, setting out the anticipated delivery mechanisms, funding schemes and contingencies in the event that investment is deferred or not forthcoming. Lord Mayor, also every policy of the plan will have a clear delivery mechanism set in place to ensure that the policies are actually delivered on the ground. This administration is putting its money where its mouth is. We have restructured the capital programme to make it more strategic and increased it to 417 million to align it with the provisions of the joint local plan and the Plymouth plan, and we'll talk more about that later, Lord Mayor. But some examples in respect of current capital programme, and I appreciate some of those have been mentioned already, but I think it's useful to put some figures to that. The History Centre, 27 million. The Northern Corridor Transport Improvements of 20 million. Eastern Corridor Transport Improvements of 8 million. New and expanded schools, Ocean's Gate, strategic land acquisitions to enable regeneration of some 53 million. City Market refurbishment, Devonport Market Hall. Future capital programme proposals, Lord Mayor, include, inter alia, Woolwell to the George dualling, further Northern Corridor transport schemes, Forda Valley Link Road, new schools, Derriford Community Park, Central Park improvements mentioned earlier, City Centre Public Realm, Lord Mayor, Millbay Cruise Liner Terminal, the Mayflower 2020 infrastructure improvements, Plymouth Railway Station, further Ocean Gates investments, Millbay Boulevard, Lord Mayor, extra care facilities, and of course new cemetery and crematorium facilities. These are all very exciting times, a sentiment echoed across this chamber this morning. I very much welcome and support the recommendations of Councillor Nicholson this morning. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy. Councillor Downey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, can I please just say I'm enjoying this sense of smiling consensus, and I'm very confident it will continue throughout the budget meeting this afternoon. I'm sure we'll be in full agreement across the board all day today. Or is that wishful thinking? Lord Mayor, I'd like to fully support the JLP and commend the Cross Authority working with South Hams and West Devon, instigated by the work of the leader, which provides a strong policy framework for the city moving forward. In particular, Lord Mayor, I support the provisions in the joint local plan for creating healthy and sustainable communities, and for ensuring that the layout and details of new developments adequately contribute towards high standards of community safety, reducing opportunities for crime and the fear of crime through policy DEV 20. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Downey. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Access to high-quality sports facilities as well as informal recreation opportunities is a key component in supporting healthy, active communities. The development of a new and enhanced facility must be delivered in line with our plans for growth to meet the needs of existing communities. The Plymouth and South West Devon Sports and Leisure Facilities Plan supports the joint local plan and is based on a detailed assessment of local needs. It has identified the needs to protect and maintain the existing network of facilities whilst improving others in a targeted way. I would like to particularly support many site-specific proposals that include commitment to improving sports facilities in the city, as well as policy DEV3, which sets out our commitment to sports and recreation in the city. Policy DEV4 also supports the protection and enhancement of playing pitches in the city. In my view, the joint local plan represents the most detailed assessment of sports facilities and playing pitches with clear plans to deliver these. I therefore welcome that the joint local plan is saying about our ambitious sports and leisure. And I would also like to add that it also links in with the new sports, the links that health and sport have got to be seen to be joining up to get the city more healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Mike Leaves.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I also support this. It's a fantastic local plan. It strengthened my arm and the environment really well. The waste management, to increase recycling, I think it's got to be good for the city. We need to increase our recycling rate. It also keeps our 2 recycling sites, which we need. With Western Mill is going to remain, which is, I think, is a good thing to do. It protects our open spaces more than ever before, and I'm really pleased with that. I mean, we've got some fantastic open spaces been talked about today, and it does protect them very well. And in particularly my ward, Jenny Cliff, who Turnchill Mountbatten, because a lot of development could have happened there, and I'm really pleased that's kept as open spaces. I am really pleased, and I think Councillor Mark Lowry, I think, who was working pretty well on the low carbon for Plymouth. Increases that. It helps to support all the low carbon facilities here. We are pledged to reduce our emissions by 80% by 2050 from 1990. So we are moving forward with that. I am passionate with that. I think we need to do this. It supports our power and heat from energy to waste and other facilities. We need to expand on that in the city to protect our, more renewable facilities for that. So I really welcome all this to move forward, and I'll be looking forward to working with Paul Barr and his team on planning to reduce our carbon and on new developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leaves. Councillor Mark Lowry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and obviously I also rise to support this plan and wholeheartedly support the comments made by members to date. However, I do want to go a little off piece, Lord Mayor, and talk about specifically housing, in the fact that this plan refers to the need for some 26,700 homes, 19,000 of which are within the city boundaries, and we shouldn't underestimate that challenge, Lord Mayor. The city has many housing pressures. The average earnings in our city is some £22,000. The average house price is £171,000. The ratio between those two, Lord Mayor, is 8 to 1. That's an awful lot for people to have to pay these days. Our housing list has some 7,955 on the waiting list, and 5,017 of those are priority housing needs, Lord Mayor. And this demonstrates a very high level of need for people to purchase homes, Lord Mayor, and to rent homes. Which brings me to developers, Lord Mayor, because we cannot do this without developers. And over the last decade, we've managed to build some 7,636 dwellings. This plan proposes, moving forward, that we will build 1,186 homes per annum. Only in the last 25 years, on 4 occasions, have we actually managed to build in excess of 1,000 homes. So there is a challenge there that we have to undoubtedly rise to, Lord Mayor. And if we think about that challenge, there are currently some 4,944 homes with planning permissions on some 169 sites. That equates to 4.1 years of planning applications ready to go and to build on. Now, I know this local authority is doing everything it possibly can to enable development on those sites that we've got planning permission for already, and it will do for those sites mentioned in this plan. However, developers also need to step up to the mark. And I was surprised to find out, Lord Mayor, that if you think about Sherford, which has some 5,500 homes allocated, this year they're planning to build a meagre 126 homes, which, if that projection carries on forward, Lord Mayor, it would take some 44 years before that development happens. Equally, Linden Homes in Mill Bay, the Dubai development as it's sometimes referred to, the 142 homes there, planning permission granted in 2015, and that's currently being touted around on the open market for sale, and therefore very unlikely to come forward in the very near future. So whilst I accept we have a brilliant plan and I wholeheartedly support it, Lord Mayor, there is a requirement for developers to step up to the plate and do their bit. And we need to send out a strong message to those developers that those 169 stored sites, we will work with them to bring them forward. But if they don't, then we should take action against them to force them to bring those sites forward. And we should also look at, Lord Mayor, acquiring those sites if necessary through CPO measures or some form of negotiation. Because whilst this plan's good, if the commitment around delivery is not there from developers as well as ourselves, then clearly, once again, we're going to fail to meet our ambitions. So we should send out a strong message to developers that if you want to work with us, we will work with you. We will bend over backwards. We will do everything in our power. We will align the capital programme, as the leader suggested, to assist. But if you don't, then you're not welcome here, because all you do is upset our communities, you land bank, you sell land for a profit, and you cause upset in our communities, which is not welcome. So whilst I support this plan and all the comments made by members, equally, through cross-party working, we should send out a strong message that we're open for business, but you've got to step up to the mark too, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowry. Councillor Bridgewater.
Okay, thank you, my Lord Mayor. I just wanted to add my comments really to say that I fully support this plan. It's an excellent, well thought out plan, and as someone who campaigned hard to protect Plymouth Airport and to save Plymouth Airport, obviously policy STP 8 and PLY 42 to protect it for general aviation is fantastic news, and I thank everyone that's worked on that. It's also music to my ears to hear both Councillor Ian Bowyer and Councillor Tudor Evans agreeing together beautifully regarding its future safeguard and, importantly, to protect it from Sutton Harbour Holdings and any other developer. And I echo what Councillor Lowry's just said. This is vitally important to all my residents in Moorview and everyone who campaigned. So I just wanted to say thank you, and we look forward to reopening the airport in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgman. Councillor Pengelly.
I could not let this go through without actually mentioning Sherford as it's West Devon and South Hams joint local plan. I'm delighted to see in the document that there is green open space designated between Elberton and the Sherford development. The Elberton residents were really, really worried that Sherford would encroach onto them and it would just become part of it. But there is green open space put between Elberton and Sherford. And I'm also delighted to actually report to this council about the new road that has gone around King George V playing field, because originally on the old plan, and I think it's still there was a line going across King George V playing field, and I'm looking at Paul at the back there, or I think was the person who put the road there, and to knock out a play park. I couldn't help but mentioning this, that there now is a beautiful new road, and it is lovely, going around the outside of King George V that links up Plymouth to Sherford, and that's fantastic. And also, everyone in this council chamber must be delighted that the swimming pool is mentioned in the local plan for Plymstock, which means every time a resident asks the question to this council about information about a swimming pool, we can just say to him, it's in the local plan, and it's going to be delivered. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pengelly. Councillor Ken Foster.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It gives me a pleasure to listen this morning to this debate, and I'm sure that with the residents watching and people from South Hams in the gallery, that to think that the passionate speeches on both sides this morning makes one think, especially on the airport and the fishing of this city, because the fishing industry will push this city forward. And it was wonderful for me to sit here and listen to a combined effort from this chamber that we're speaking as one body. And I thank the chamber for saying that, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, every speaker so far has supported the plan. I don't think anyone's had a bad word to say about it, and nor do I. But I do want to seek an assurance about one particular site. I'm referring to Site 3 in Policy PLY 58, which is a housing site in King's Tamerton, St Budo, proposed for 40 homes. On the site allocations draft, Lord Mayor, this was proposed specifically for self-build housing, and I objected to that. Self-build housing requires a relaxation of the construction code to allow work at weekends and in the evening, because that's when self-builders can do their work. And this site is immediately adjacent to an area of existing housing. So the residents of those houses would be condemned to a period of continual building at all hours of the day for quite some time, and I felt this was wrong. The plan does not designate it for self-build. It doesn't designate it, there is no such specific designation. Our policies on meeting housing needs do refer to exploring the ways to ensure that self-built plots are provided, but they don't refer, there's no reference to this specific site. So I'm just seeking assurance that there is no implication in the plan that this site is suitable, the whole of this site is suitable for self-build. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Tuffin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I rise to welcome this because I think it's an important step forward for all of us. But I think for me, I was so pleased to see health and well-being mentioned on page 231. And I think particularly well-being is so important. And this plan has got elements of well-being. It's a theme going right the way through it, because we all know that health and well-being is whether you've got a decent home, whether you've got a job, whether there's leisure facilities. And this Plymouth plan is ensuring that all those things are raised as an important issue. And just one thing, in the spirit of togetherness, I have some concerns about the continued funding of play areas for our young people. And seeing as we're working together so well, perhaps at this point we could agree to put some funding into that, because once again, that's about health and well-being, and I think it's very important. And I thank the officers for including that in this plan, and I welcome every element of the plan. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tuffin. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd too like to begin by congratulating everyone involved over the last few years in the process that has led to the production of the joint local plan, and thank the large number of our local residents and businesses that have engaged in the process that has brought us here. On this side, we're pleased to see that policy DV7 continues to commit us to 30% affordable housing, and DV9 continues to support a range of styles of affordable housing, including social rent. As Councillor Lowry said, that's really important for the city. And we as a group will be holding the council to account on that. We are disappointed that policy SPT3 contradicts DV7. 23.9% might be pragmatic, but it's not 30% affordable housing. We'll be fighting for DV7. DV7 as we go forward, because we need to ensure that people in Plymouth who need homes get them. Lord Mayor, we welcome SPT2 and the commitment to a good balance of housing types and tenures. This is vital for all parts of the city as it encourages sustainable and vibrant communities. We shouldn't just be building lots of identical units in the same patches. So how does SPT2 look in the city centre, in my own ward of St Peter and the waterfront? Conveniently, policies PRY 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 describe over 1,000 new homes in the city centre alone, and that excludes the student housing components of other policies. All of these new homes will be above existing retail units or in new blocks of 5 or 6 stories above active ground floor usage. The likelihood is that they will be fairly similar sized flats and masonettes without gardens. I welcome PRY 6 and want to see the city centre improved and enhanced, including with the introduction of housing, but we need to make sure that that housing is balanced and mixed. It appears that no provision is made for land allocation for the school the plan says will be needed in the city centre, nor for any of the other community infrastructure provision to accommodate over 1,000 new homes. In their current form, this brings policy SPT2 into question, so I think that will either need to be remedied fairly quickly or lead to lots of ongoing planning battles as every single application comes forward to ensure that the major policies are met. Lord Mayor, it would be remiss of me today not to also mention PLY 27, which has caused great consternation amongst residents of the Hoe. 52 new homes and a major hotel are considered overdevelopment on the registry office site. It's actually a similar sized development to the Quality Inn site on a site that has a much smaller footprint. I think this is a site that the inspector will be asked to review by local residents. Lord Mayor, it is inevitable that in a plan of this magnitude there will be areas of concern. I'm sure our local communities will continue to engage in the process as we move forward from today to final consultation and then into inspection. Lord Mayor, I welcome this plan. Let's make sure that we build the homes. Let's cut our housing waiting lists and provide people with the homes that they need. Let's make sure we create and enhance mixed and sustainable communities. And let's make sure that those communities have the schools, the doctors, the pharmacists and the amenity spaces that they need. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I too would like to pay tribute to our planning team for all the work and effort, and I know firsthand just how much has gone into delivering this plan, because I was the cabinet member that dealt with this for a number of years. I fully welcome the cooperation that we've achieved between our colleagues in South Hams and West Devon. This has been not, if I fair to say, it's not been a always joyous process, but we've worked together. We've got to an agreement, and I fully welcome that. It's interesting, when we started this plan, we wanted to engage with every aspect of life. Today I've sat here and I've waited to speak until the last minute, because I've heard cabinet members popping up and down saying, this plan will deliver, this plan will deliver, this is my area, this plan will deliver. We've had a few ward councillors standing up saying, this plan is good for my area, this plan is good for my area. I would say, as a cabinet member that oversaw this, we've achieved what we set out to achieve, because people around cross-party are around the chamber saying it's working for us, for me, for my area. That's the goal. We now have to get on. We now have to work together, because we will have the policies in place. We, as elected representatives, now need to make sure that we go on and we do the most critical thing, and that is deliver for our community, our citizens, and show that Plymouth is really a city that is open for business, that knows where it's going, and it's beholden on everyone to make sure we deliver. I'm proud of the part that we played in delivering and setting this up. I pay tribute to the officers and everybody else. Lord Mayor, I hope to see a unanimous vote in the chamber today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Coker. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a child, I remember well walking around the Barbican and looking at our fishing fleet. Plymouth's proud fishing heritage dates back much further than my childhood, although I'm sure that was some years ago, my Lord Mayor. Over the years, the fishing fleet size has decreased, and so has the look of the harbour, with the fleet now being squeezed into a small section of my ward. Fishermen tell us it's not big enough to offer permanent berths to our local fleet, or vessels that often fish off Plymouth. Local fishermen within the city are having to moor their Plymouth-based fishing boats elsewhere in marinas across the city. This is less than helpful after a long day or days at sea to have to lock in, that's the technical term for coming through the lock gates, I gather, and land at Sutton Harbour and then lock out again and go elsewhere to moor. It is right that the plan looks to protect the limited space and footprint of the fisheries complex on land. And I hope the Council will continue to support the fishing industry and assist them in developing the onshore facilities that benefits Plymouth's ocean cities fishing fleet. Original plans from 20 years ago identified additional footprints around Sutton Harbour for slipping facilities and workshops. Engineering and boat building have already been lost to mixed use and development. The small piece of land must continue to be protected in its entirety for the fishing industry, who would welcome the developments that not only support their industry and growth, but give growth opportunities and training facilities and better interaction with the public. But while we welcome the on-land protection the plan offers, we must also look at the waterside and harbour. There are many places that yachts and pleasure vessels can moor within Plymouth. Most marinas have space available, but this body of water in Sutton Harbour, and it has its access to the fish quays, the facilities that are vital to this industry and unique within the city for the fishing fleet. I wonder what more can be done to look at the management of the waterside and ensure that enough space is protected for the safe mooring and manoeuvring of our fishing vessels within Sutton Harbour. Fishing businesses are optimistic about the future of Plymouth's fishing fleet. Millions of pounds are being invested in new vessels to fish and land in Plymouth. We should welcome this show of confidence in our city and inward investment and encourage more by making sure there is space to moor and work out of Sutton Harbour and that facilities to land match that facilities. For every fisherman based in our port, approximately 8 jobs are created on land. Plymouth has already, under the hard work of Plymouth trawler agents and the team headed by Dave and Ali Pessel, seen the market jump from £750,000 turnover to over 17 million since it moved from the Barbican. This is almost double the best and optimistic predictions that were made at the time when the new market was built. Post-Brexit, Plymouth fishermen expect a boost to their fishing opportunities, and we must make sure this opportunity for jobs and growth can be kept here in this city and not displaced to other ports in the southwest. Finally, my Lord Mayor, when the smaller fishing vessels were moved from the Barbican side and more pontoons were put in for yachts, I wonder if something very special was lost. In the past, tourists and locals would stop to watch and chat with the fishermen working on their boats, as I did as a child. And I wonder if some serious thought can be put back into what can be done to bring those smaller boats back into the Barbican side. I believe they offer a tourist draw, and that may free up some of the deeper berths and more space in the small area that the fleet is now confined to. Fishermen are brave and heroic. Every time they set sail, our plans for their industry should also be brave and heroic and protect the space on land and water to keep them here and to help them flourish. These are well-paid, skilled jobs. They support well-paid and skilled jobs on land, and the city should help them realise the potential of being England's largest fishing port. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Nicholson, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Hopefully you'll be a bit lenient while I run through and respond to a number of points raised by members. Today, I think, has shown the City Council in a very positive and good light, because this has been a most constructive debate, probably one of the best we've had for a number of years. And I welcome very much all the contributions that have been made. And if you bear with me, I'm happy to run through and answer some of the specific points that have been raised by members in this debate. first starting with the comments, welcome comments by Councillor Evans. I welcome very much, Tudor, all the effort and support you've put in behind the scenes in bringing about the recommendations today through the joint working with you and your colleagues. You are absolutely right. It's by working together as a council, but by working with the citizens of this city and our colleagues and their communities in Southampton, West Devon, that we've been able to get to today's momentous position. And the points you raise about the airport and the fishing industry, obviously ably supported by Councillor Aspel and other members, are fundamental to the position of this council. These policies we've come about collectively and collaboratively, and we will stand up and be counted and defend these policies with all the might that the council has at its disposal. So, you know, we send a very clear message through you, Lord Mayor, to the public at large and to business and anybody who is interested in the affairs of the city, that these policies we stand by lock, stock and barrel, and that we will do everything we can at the examination in public before the inspector to justify the stance that we're proposing to take, and hopefully we'll agree shortly to move forward on. So welcome very much, Tudor, the comments you've made. We can't emphasise enough the importance of the fishing industry. I had the privilege, and indeed I'm sure other members have, over the past few months, of meeting the Plymouth trawler agents and actually learning firsthand the importance of the facilities to them and the operation of the fishing industry. And policy POY 20.2 particularly emphasises the importance of the fishing industry, the maintenance of that facility, but also we as a local authority working with the fishing industry to further develop the significance of their contribution to not only the Plymouth economy, but the economy of the South West. And we will, as much as we defend the future of the airport, we will defend and indeed promote the furtherance of the fishing industry in this city. So turning, if I may, to Councillor Sparling's contribution. Councillor Sparling, thank you for representing, along with other Stoke Ward councillors, particularly the Deputy Lord Mayor, the views of the local community in Stoke. Certainly throughout this process, and in general terms, a large number of members on specific sites have made their representations throughout the plan process. And I've been particularly interested to know of the representations that have been made, both from councillors but also members of Parliament. And in this situation, Oliver Colville, as a Member of Parliament for the Stoke Ward, also made representations. And it was my strategy personally to try and ensure that we brought a plan that had as much support from politicians, from the community, from members of Parliament, that we could possibly deliver. And this is one such site, Paradise Road, where, you know, this plan has listened to the views of the local community and duly responded, and I very much welcome that. And then moving to Councillor Martin Lees. Councillor Lees, we speak with one voice on Central Park. Central Park, as members will know, brought me into politics in the first place, and I'm really pleased to be supporting particularly the views of the Peveril Ward, Peveril councillors and the residents they represent, and indeed the Drake Ward residents, and indeed the Stoke Ward residents, in ensuring that the green lung of this city in Central Park is protected, and with the support of Councillor Darcy and the leader, we intend to invest millions of pounds in making sure that we have pride in Central Park and it's fit for purpose. And that should include at some stage the reinstitution of the cricket pitch, which is laid moribund for far too long. So thank you for your support, Councillor Lees. I won't address every aspect that Cabinet members have raised, because we had a debate in Cabinet and a number of them have had good responses to the points they raise. So if I may then turn to Councillor Stevens. You're absolutely right, Councillor Stevens. This has to be one of the biggest consultation exercises this City Council has ever undertaken. And I think it's paid off. Because when we go to examination in public with the government inspector, I'm hoping very much... You're doing it formally, Councillor.
Just through you, Lord Mayor, I'm conscious of the rules of procedure. If Council wishes Councillor Nicholson to go forward, through you, Lord Mayor, you will need 2/3 of you to vote in favour. Through you, Lord Mayor, all those in favour? Okay, thank you.
very much, members. I'll be as quick as I can. So the strategy was to try and ensure that when we defend our position with the inspector, that we're only lined up against effectively landowners and those who really don't have the best interests of the city at heart in that examination, not our own residents. Now, the point you make on Drake's Island, as you're aware, an awful lot of effort has been undertaken by this council over a number of months to ensure that we get to a position where the policy context for Drake's Island will see, hopefully, a convincing argument to the planning committee that Drake's Island has a way forward, and we can see some regeneration and the opening up of the island to the wider Plymouth public. So I'm very pleased that this plan does reflect a slight change in the policies that hopefully will bring that about. Now, in terms of Councillor Morris's contribution, you're absolutely right, Councillor Morris. I've been hounded as the Cabinet member since May by the people of Tamerton Foliot over the potential complete encircling of Tamerton Foliot in housing development. Certainly all members that represent that community, whether they be in Budshead Ward or in Southway Ward, and the Member of Parliament have consistently, almost on a monthly basis, latterly on a weekly basis, pressed to ensure that their land is protected. Loud and clear, those views have been heard and they are being reflected in the plan today. But I would go one step further through you, Lord Mayor, is that this council, with the South Hams District Council, whose administrative boundary borders Tamerton Foliot, will resist the current planning applications that are before the joint authorities and ensure at the examination in public that we stand firm on this position. We do not need to see the fields of Tamerton Foliot destroyed by unwelcome development. Now moving to Councillor Lowry's position and contribution on housing delivery. Councillor Lowry has been at the forefront of housing delivery in this local authority for a number of years, and I'm pleased that members on my side, including myself, have tried to ensure that the mantle that he set with the previous administration is continued in this administration, and that we deliver the priority housing needs of this city. You're absolutely right, Councillor Lowry, that the build rates of development, there is room for improvement. But what I would say, through you, Lord Mayor, to Councillor Lowry, is that of the homes identified in the joint local plan and in the Plymouth policy area in particular, 4,550 of those affordable homes should be delivered in our local community. And I think it's important that everybody's aware, particularly the public at large, that affordable accommodation does include wholly rented accommodation, it does include shared equity, as well as starter homes and other forms of affordable homes. So I think some people generally misunderstand the word affordable and think you have to buy an affordable home. It's about the provision of homes for rent as well as those that are cheaper than the normal market rate. But you do set a challenge which the Housing Needs Working Group, of which you and I are members, have been discussing recently. And I think it's important today, Lord Mayor, and for the Council to emphasise that this Council will use, again, all powers within the laws of local government to bring about the delivery of some of these sites. And I can confirm to Councillor Lowry that this administration will, when necessary, bring forward compulsory purchase orders on specific sites. And I give this assurance to Councillor Lowry, and we discussed it at the last Housing Needs Working Group, that at a future Housing Needs Working Group, we'll identify those sites that we intend to take through Cabinet where the long stop will be compulsory purchase. We are sick and tired of squabbling developers on certain sites where sites could deliver numerous homes for the people of this city, where landowners are only interested in money rather than actually in the delivery of homes. And so this local authority will use its powers to take through compulsory purchase orders where necessary. Now, moving to Councillor Bridgman's point, which again echoed the point of the leader, the airport is sacrosanct, and therefore we hope that this policy on the airport we will stand by. Just quickly, if I can just quickly address, there are three other main points. Councillor Wheeler asked for a specific assurance on Coombe and Kings Tamerton, 40 homes. I understand the concerns, Councillor Wheeler, and some of those concerns would be dealt with normally under the development management process through the planning committee. There are discussions to be had regarding that site, and I'll take on board your concerns. But this is predominantly just an allocation for housing today. And in terms of Councillor Tuffin's request about play areas, then certainly, again, I'll take that on board and see what we can do in terms of investment. On affordable homes, Councillor Penberthy, ultimately the delivery of planning applications, delivery of homes, is predicated on the planning committee. Viability has to be a part, although our aspiration is 30% of affordable homes. However, where affordability can't be delivered, affordable homes can't be delivered because of viability, then I think we would suggest that actually some homes is better than no homes, and that's a balance for the planning committee. Just finally, to sum up through you, Lord Mayor, I echo all the comments of members in relation to the support the officers of the council have given to the establishment and delivery of and the agreement of this plan. Without the staff who have supported us within the City Council, supported by colleagues in West Devon and South Hams, we wouldn't be in the good place we're in today. Lord Mayor, thank you through you to the councillors for all their support of this plan, and we look forward collectively to delivering it.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. We'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Recommendations are carried. Thank you. We will now move to item 4, pages 9 to 16 and pages 315 to 390. The Cabinet Minute is being circulated. Plymouth Plan Refresh. Councillor Nicholson, would you like to present the recommendations?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, hopefully this shouldn't take quite as long as the last item. My Lord Mayor, members, I'd like to move the recommendations from Cabinet this morning in relation to the Plymouth Plan. It was 5 years ago in September 2012 when Councillor Brian Vincent persuaded the Cabinet that there had to be a better way for Plymouth to plan for its strategic future than having 130 different plans and strategies. Such an approach, even at its best, is confusing, costly, and gives mixed messages to local people and investors. The bold decision that was taken then was to try to do something that no other local authority in the UK had done before, namely to create a single plan that would be about both people and place, providing one vision, one strategy, and one overarching narrative about Plymouth's future. Today represents the culmination of that journey, following extensive and indeed innovative community engagement and discussion. The Plymouth Plan Refresh maintains the strategic direction set out when it was unanimously approved by the full council in September 2015. We have taken the opportunity to update the policies in the Plymouth Plan to reflect new and updated evidence and data. We have also sought to accommodate updated emerging priorities for the City Council and its partners in response to changing circumstances. Once the joint local plan is formally adopted, its Plymouth-specific spatial policies will be reunited with the refreshed Plymouth Plan Part 1 policies, so that a fully web-based interactive Plymouth Plan can be recreated as originally intended. This will mean that for Plymouth we will have replaced over 130 plans and strategies with one digital, interactive, integrated, holistic plan, where our vision for the city and the strategic policies that we will deliver that vision are located in one place for citizens and investors alike. It gives me great pleasure, Lord Mayor, therefore, to commend to the Council the Plymouth Plan Refresh.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Boyer, I understand you're going to second this. Do you wish to speak now?
Yes, I'd like to speak now, please, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Just to emphasise this, if I can, what Councillor Nicholson has just said. This is the strategic direction of the Plymouth Plan, agreed in September 15. It was agreed then, it remains the same now, and what we have now is what we envisaged then, a single strategic integrated plan that will continue to be our economic strategy, it's our cultural strategy, it's our health and well-being strategy, child poverty, planning, transport and community safety strategy, and it's going to guide obviously everything we do from here on in, subject to approval, of course. We remain committed to creating an interactive online capability for the Plymouth Plan, where you can access whatever it is interests you in the plan, be it whether you're a resident, a young person, or an investor. And I think also Lord Mayor will help us to get that message out, which we've heard time and time again in this chamber, and we had a reference to it earlier on, is that Plymouth is open for business, and this is the place in the southwest. If you want to invest, if you want to live here, if you want to work here, or if you want to play here, Plymouth is the place to be. Can I also just finish by paying tribute and saying thanks once again to Councillors Evans, Stevens, Coker, Vincent, and my colleague Councillor Nicholson for the work that they've done consistently in terms of working with the Plymouth Plan Working Group. And I think what we have here is the essence of a plan now which will guide the future of the city for many years to come. It's been a truly collaborative process. I thank all of them for their hard work, and I would urge all members now please to support the recommendations of Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Does anybody else wish to speak? I've got Councillor Jordan. I've got Councillor Ricketts, Councillor Evans, Councillor...
I was going to say, can we just move to the vote? Really, we have aired this. It saves me pointing out, the digital strategy. Obviously, people can go to their local library and access it.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson, do you wish to sum up, or do you just go straight to the vote? Okay. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, the recommendations are carried. Thank you. There are no more items of business, so I declare this meeting closed. Thank you.